In today's video, we have some updated NHL trade rumors talking about players like Tomas, Hertl, and Filip Forsberg. We also have a few signings to discuss, a rumor on the potential contract for Kailer, Yamamoto, and Auston Matthews injury update. We also have a pretty significant update regarding Stan Bowman being the GM of Team USA for the Olympics. There's a large group in the States advocating for him to be removed because of all the allegations going on with the Blackhawks. All that and more coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a variety of things to talk about here today. I want to kick things off with a few quick news updates, and then we'll get into the Stan Bowman stuff and the trade rumors a little bit after. So first up, we have a couple of signings. The Seattle Kraken have signed forward Ryan Donato to a one-year contract, $750,000. Of course, Donato has bounced around a little bit. Came out of college with the Boston Bruins, signed where he was drafted, and looked really, really good. But then since then, he's now bounced around between Minnesota and San Jose, and just can't seem to get everything on track and find a solid place to play and kind of become the player that many thought he was going to be. Like I said, he came out and really on fire in the beginning. It was crazy, but then he cooled off quick and just have seemed to kind of lost his game a bit. But Seattle's obviously a good place for him to go. Obviously not a ton of established players there, given the fact they're a brand new team. They do have some good veterans that they were able to sign and take an expansion, but he should be able to win a roster spot there and see if things can get back on track. So we'll see how things work out for him in that regard. We also saw the San Jose Sharks sign Noah Gregor. He gets a one-year, two-way deal, $750,000 at the NHL level, $150,000 at the AHL level. He appeared in 30 games last year and scored 5 goals. He's got a couple of years of pro hockey under his belt now. He's 23 years old. I would suspect that he'll have a pretty good chance at making the Sharks roster and likely, getting most of that time at the NHL level for that one-year contract. Now, we also had word today that newly hired Columbus Blue Jackets assistant coach Sylvain Lefebvre, of course, was a long-time NHL defenseman, played a long time for the Habs, will no longer be an assistant coach with Columbus. Of course, he was hired before the COVID protocols were introduced and agreed upon, accepted, rolled out, all that. And he has, for whatever reason, I don't know the reasoning behind it, if there's it's just a choice or what it is, but he's not vaccinated, so he will not be able to fulfill his duties with the Jackets on the bench. So he will no longer be there. They are bringing up one of the assistant coaches from their American Hockey League team who was worked previously and played previously with their new head coach. So certainly, interesting development there. We may see other players or coaches possibly, due to that mandate, maybe have to make similar choices. We'll have to see, but I don't suspect there'll be too many. I know from a player standpoint, the last time we had heard anything regarding vaccination rates, it was around 95%. I don't know where things stand here today, but I would suspect we'll probably get another update on how things are looking in that regard as we get a little bit closer to training camp. I know a lot of teams are running their rookie and development camps now, so obviously training camps mostly open here like in the next week to 10 days. There's also reports indicating that Kailer Yamamoto is likely going to have no choice but to settle on a short-term bridge deal with the Edmonton Oilers, which is really no big surprise. I know Jim Matheson was talking about this, and to me it makes a ton of sense because, for one, I don't know if the Oilers completely know what Yamamoto is yet. Is he a top 6? Is he a top 9? Where does he fit in that lineup long term? That's obviously going to help determine his long-term value. Obviously, at one point, like not last year, but the year before, he looked like he was going to be a solid member of the top 6, putting up almost a point per game in a shortened number of games that he was able to get in. Played really well with Draisaitl. But then last year, he had an okay year, but things did kind of tail off a little bit. So now that he needs a new deal, the Oilers are also tight on salary cap space. They don't have a ton of room. They have the Oscar Klefbom contract they can put on LTIR, which will certainly help. Based on their cap-friendly amount, they don't have a ton of space. But they have the Oscar Klefbom contract they can put on LTIR, which will certainly help. Based on their cap-friendly amount, they don't have a ton of space, but they do have a few players they can demote to even out their roster. Like there's 3 goalies showing, like 8 or 9 defensemen. So they can free up a little bit more room that way. But I would suspect probably maybe 2 to 3 years at most will be the contract length that, maybe at $2 to $3 million. I don't suspect him going to get a whole lot of money. That's really about all they can do at this point. And if he's looking for any more than that, then it might explain why the deal's not done yet, for starters, and secondly, how it could drag on. But I would suspect that Holland and the Oilers are likely using it as leverage, saying, listen, this is the best we can do right now, and we also would like you to be more established on where you're going to be and build that consistency before you get a better deal. So we'll see, but I would not be surprised before camp if Yamamoto gets a short-term bridge contract. Quick update as well on Leafs top center Auston Matthews. Apparently his wrist injury is well on track to being ready for opening night of the NHL season. I know there was a lot of people questioning why he waited so late into the offseason to end up getting wrist surgery, but essentially what he had to say was, when the season ended, he was able to get it to settle down a little bit. They kind of wanted to wait and see if they really needed to have surgery. Obviously, you don't want to have surgery if you don't really have to. Things were looking good, but then as his training picked up in Arizona during the offseason, he started having further issues and decided it was just time to get it cleaned up and get the procedure done so he could move forward and still have time to heal and recover and be ready for the start of the 21-22 season. So that's great news for Leafs fans. Not so great news for opposing netminders, because he should be back with a healthy wrist. We saw what he did last year with having an issue. So this goes to show you that it really couldn't have been all that serious if he was still able to play the way that he did. But he could be even better next year if he's fully healthy and recovered. Now, before we go any further into today's video, I do need to pause for a moment and acknowledge our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by Manscaped. Of course, with Manscaped, we have a special offer here for all Top Shelf Hockey viewers where you can get 20% off and free shipping on all orders at manscaped.com. Now, of course, Manscaped just launched a brand new Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is a fantastic product. They've taken the level up here, even again with the skin-safe replaceable blades. It's waterproof, it's wireless charging, has a travel lock on it, as well as a nice light so you don't miss what you're doing. So certainly a terrific product. Now, many people associate Manscaped with their trimmers, which is certainly kind of their top product, but they do have a lot of other great options as well, including what they call the Weed Whacker, which is another trimmer for your ears and nose. And they have a variety of deodorants and sprays as well, which also keep you fresh and are terrific as well. So certainly Manscaped has a lot to offer, and we certainly highly recommend all of their products. So check out manscaped.com and use promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. So thanks very much for watching that promotional content. I do greatly appreciate it. Now, I also want to look at a story from TSN today and senior reporter Rick Westhead, who does a lot of the investigative journalism for the news site. I mean, obviously, he's been following the Chicago Blackhawks situation quite closely with the abuse claims and the lawsuits that are going on with that. And there's some pretty big news here today that a pretty large group, a think tank in the U.S., are calling for GM Stan Bowman of Team USA for the Olympics to be removed as general manager amid all these allegations. I do have a printed copy here of the article. I'm going to read you a couple of quick excerpts to let you know exactly what is all being said here. An American think tank that studies child sexual abuse prevention is asking the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee to suspend Stan Bowman from his position as general manager of the U.S. Olympic men's hockey team while he faces allegations that he helped cover up sexual abuse of two Chicago Blackhawks players. In a September 11th letter to the USPOC, Chief Executive Sarah Hertl, Marcy Hamilton, founder of the advocacy group Child USA, wrote that Bowman, who is also the current GM of the Blackhawks, should be suspended by USA Hockey. She says, I write to you today to request the suspension of Stan Bowman from his position as general manager of the U.S. Olympic men's hockey team, and that an independent investigation into Bowman's behavior in his role as general manager of hockey operations of the Blackhawks be conducted. Child USA provided TSN with a copy of Hamilton's letter, which also addressed to the USOPC chair Suzanne Lyons, its board members, and Elizabeth Ramsey, executive director of the USOPC's Athlete Advisory Council. She said in a phone interview that she decided to engage in the Blackhawks scandal because she sees it as evidence of a repeated pattern. This is the paradigm we keep seeing. Not only do we have a perpetrator, but our powerful institutions are essentially ignoring the fact that they have an abuser in their midst. This isn't just a church. This isn't just a church or a Boy Scout problem. It's a societal problem, and this is a great example of that. The article also goes on to say that what we are seeing now with the Blackhawks and USA Hockey is shocking, and not because of the behavior of the Predator. What's shocking is that it's been 19 years since what we learned thanks to the Boston Globe journalists how the bishops in the Catholic Church really covered up sexual abuse by priests. This hockey case is shocking because by now people should know the proper way to respond to allegations like this. So I guess we will see if USA Hockey feels the pressure here and follows through on this request or not. I would not be shocked if they get further requests from additional groups advocating on people's behalf. Obviously, like I said, this is a pretty big issue with the Blackhawks organization. We really don't know everything that's, for sure gone on because things are still going through the court system, but it does not sound good. It does not look good. It does appear as though things were covered up if the allegations are true, which I do stress if. We cannot assume guilt here without having things proven in the court of law. But at the end of the day, things, like I said, they just don't look good. So you would think that it might be in their best interest to kind of steer clear of here while the investigation is being completed. And if he's cleared and said that he didn't do anything wrong, well, that's a completely different story. But what they're being accused of is very, very serious and could lead to some pretty severe consequences if, it's determined that the Hawks did indeed cover things up and that he, as an authoritative figure, played an essential role in doing so. So we'll have to see what happens. But this is a big development, in my opinion, especially when it comes for the Hawks situation for USA Hockey. And I'll be curious to see if they succumb to any pressure being placed on them to remove Bowman as general manager. Now, as I mentioned in the trade rumor section of today's video, we're going to look at two players. We're going to start with Tomas Hertl of the San Jose Sharks, who's a guy we've talked about a few times now. We don't even know for sure that Doug Wilson wants to trade Hertl. I know it's been mentioned in the various reports that Hertl's unsure if he wants to re-sign, if he wants the Sharks to want to keep him and all that, based on an interview he conducted not long ago. And Doug Wilson apparently was even telling other GMs that he may want to sign and extend the young forward. But, at this point, he's in his mid-20s, seems to be, really unclear with the team's direction. Could use a fresh start, and we'll see where things go. But for right now, I want to reference an article from Joe Haggerty of Boston Hockey Now, talking about how Hertl could possibly be a good fit for the Bruins. As we know, there's a pretty big hole in the number 2 center spot after David Krejci left to go back and play home in the Czech Republic. They're going to give Charlie Coyle the opportunity to play that role at the number 2 center spot when the season begins. At least that's what it looks like now. But there are some like me that are concerned that he's not going to be a great fit there, and they may want to soon look into trying to find a way to upgrade the position. Now, Haggerty suggested offering Jack Studnicka in a first-round pick because based on what Kevin Kurz, the Sharks beat reporter for The Athletic, has indicated, in his opinion, it's likely going to take a first-round pick and a good prospect to lure Hertl out of San Jose. Well, to me, that would be a hard no. If I'm Boston, I would not trade Studnicka in a first-round pick. That is too substantial. To me, I would rather see Studnicka get a chance to be the number 2 center. I know right now in Boston, they're doing some practices with like the captain practices, and there's obviously some, a lot of development and rookie camps going on. Studnicka's actually looked pretty good. I've seen a lot of reporters indicating that it looks like he's certainly gotten bigger and stronger and more ready to take on a more regular NHL role. So obviously that could be a huge, loss to trade him at this point. Now, instead, if they could offer Jake DeBrusk, maybe a young player like a Urho Vakanainen or something to that effect, if that would get it done, maybe. I would maybe even consider possibly a first-round pick. Obviously, the Bruins, if they're successful, will be picking late in the first round. That might not be such a big deal to trade, but it is a deep draft coming up. They certainly do need to be careful with how they use that draft currency because like I said, it's a deep draft. They don't have a ton of young prospects at this point because they've obviously tried to continuously, beat cup contenders and go for it and move a lot of those picks. So certainly they can't be, too crazy here with trading away those draft currencies. But at the end of the day, Hertl could be a great fit there. But I would personally try out Studnicka first before I'd ever consider including him in a trade and see where things go from there. You have Coyle as that insurance piece that can either play the wing with them or they can kind of insulate him in the number 3 spot. So to me, that's what I would do, but I can understand why Hertl might be an interesting piece for Boston to consider if the price is right, of course. Now, lastly here, I want to take a look at Filip Forsberg in Nashville. He's another player we haven't really talked about in some time, but it does make a lot of sense that David Poile would consider trading the offensive winger here. He's making $6 million. He's in the final year of his contract. We've seen him move out several other pieces, including Victor Arvidsson, Ryan Ellis, to name a few. And I know he also was very public, Forsberg was, when Arvidsson was traded, that he was not really all that thrilled about it. Obviously, it takes Nashville into a different direction, and it's not something that I wonder if he may or may not want to be a part of. We haven't really heard a lot about Forsberg since then, but we've seen some articles today, actually in the Boston Globe, referring to the fact that it makes a lot of sense for Poile to trade the winger rather than extend him. They've already got guys like Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchene on long-term expensive contracts that are not working out. We've seen them try to shed a lot of other longer-term deals recently, like they traded Ryan Ellis, they let Kailer Yarncroke go to Seattle, so like they don't have nearly as many players on longer-term deals. Of course, Arvidsson, another guy who had some term on his contract too, so like, it makes sense that they may not want to go down that road with Filip Forsberg. Even though he's a good winger, one of their top players, at the end of the day here, they have to wonder where they're going to be at, and maybe getting some young future assets to help the team down the road might be a better way to go. Like, there was a lot of interest in Forsberg at the trade deadline last year. Of course, Nashville never pulled the trigger because they were on the verge of making the playoffs, so they decided to hold off. But we're in a situation now where they could go into the season with Forsberg. Doesn't mean a deal is going to happen right away, but if they don't if they don't extend him, trading him anytime during the season or at the deadline certainly makes a lot of sense, and I can see there being a lot of teams lining up for him to be one of the top deadline acquisitions if things go well for him this year. And we haven't heard any talk at this point, at least that I've seen, regarding extension talks taking place. So it'll be interesting to see if he's on the move or not. So let me know your thoughts on everything discussed here today down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.